Lieutenant David Miller stared at his computer screen in disbelief. The encrypted messages flowing across his monitor made no sense. After 5 years of peaceful alliance with the Concordiate, something was terribly wrong. Their alien allies' ships were moving out of formation, breaking away from their defensive positions around Earth. "This can't be right," he muttered, running his hands through his short brown hair. The monitoring station at Luna Base was quiet at this late hour, but the silence felt heavy with tension. He checked the data again, his heart racing. Down the hall, Major Rachel Hayes was finishing her night shift when Miller's urgent call came through. "Major, you need to see this immediately," his voice cracked with concern. Hayes hurried to his station, her boots echoing against the metal floor. At 42, she had seen enough crises to know when something was seriously wrong. One look at Miller's pale face confirmed her fears. "They're leaving," Miller said simply, pointing to the tactical display. "All of them. Every single Concordiate ship in the solar system is pulling out." Hayes leaned closer, her gray eyes narrowing as she studied the screen. The green dots representing Concordiate vessels were indeed moving away from their positions, but what caught her attention was the pattern. They were leaving in perfect formation, not like ships responding to an emergency. "Get me Admiral Carter," Hayes ordered, reaching for the secure communication line, "and start downloading every bit of data we can from their networks before we lose access." Miller's fingers flew across the keyboard, but alerts were already popping up. "They're cutting connections, Major. Communications, data links, everything." "Wait." He paused, his face growing even paler. "I'm picking up something else. Unknown signatures at the edge of our detection range." Hayes felt her blood run cold as she saw the new contacts appearing on the screen. Red dots, dozens of them, moving in formation she had never seen before. The secure line crackled to life, and Admiral Susan Carter's voice filled the room. "Report, Major Hayes." "Admiral, the Concordiate is abandoning their positions. All ships, all stations, and we're picking up unknown contacts approaching from the Kuiper Belt." Hayes kept her voice steady despite the growing dread in her stomach. There was a moment of silence before Carter responded. "We're seeing the same thing at command. Get everyone on full alert. I want all personnel at battle stations in the next 10 minutes." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. As Earth's military scrambled to respond, more disturbing news arrived. The Concordiate's diplomatic staff had vanished from their embassies. Their trade ships had jumped out of the system without delivering their cargo. Even their cultural exchange centers had been abandoned. Miller worked frantically to decode the last transmissions they had intercepted. At 400 hours, his computer beeped with a breakthrough. "Major," he called out, his voice tight with urgency. "I've decoded part of their last message traffic. It's about something called the Vex car." The Concordiate knew they were coming. Hayes leaned over his shoulder, reading the partial translation. Her face hardened as she understood the implications. They knew. They knew we were about to be attacked, and they ran. The morning sun rose over Luna Base, casting long shadows across the lunar surface. Earth hung in the black sky, beautiful and suddenly very vulnerable. The Concordiate's defensive platforms, which had protected Earth for years, were now dark and lifeless. In the command center, Hayes watched as military units worldwide went to high alert. Ships that had trained alongside Concordiate vessels now moved to defensive positions alone. Ground-based weapons that had been integrated with alien technology were being hastily reconfigured to work independently. "They left us to die," Miller said quietly, standing beside her at the observation window. Hayes shook her head, her jaw set with determination. "No, they left us to fight, and that's exactly what we're going to do." At that moment, the first alarms began to sound. The unknown ships had crossed Saturn's orbit and were accelerating toward Earth. Humanity would face this threat alone, without the advanced technology or superior weapons of their former allies. But as Hayes watched Earth's defensive fleet move into position, She saw no fear in the responses of her fellow soldiers. There was only determination, anger, and a fierce resolve that had driven humanity to survive countless challenges before this one. The Concordiat had abandoned them, but they had forgotten one crucial thing about humans. They fought hardest when their backs were against the wall. The betrayal was complete. The invasion was coming, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy exactly what they were capable of. 3 days after the Concordiat's departure, humanity faced its first real test. The Vexcar struck Europa, Jupiter's icy moon, where 5,000 colonists lived in underground habitats. Emma Roberts sat at her communications station in the Europa Colony Control Center, her coffee growing cold beside her keyboard. The attack came without warning. The colony's sensors picked up 20 ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel, their hulls black as space itself. Multiple contacts. Emma shouted across the control room. They're not responding to hails. Her fingers moved quickly across her console, recording every signal the alien ships sent. The Vexcar vessels were talking to each other, their transmissions unlike anything she had ever heard before. Captain Brian Wilson, commanding the EDF Striker, was the closest military support to Europa. His ship had been on patrol near Jupiter when the call came in. "All hands to battle stations," he ordered, his voice firm and clear over the ship's speakers. "We may be outnumbered, but we're not letting those colonists die." The Striker was a small ship compared to the massive Vexcar vessels, but Wilson had a plan. He had studied every scrap of data they had on the enemy ship's movements. The Vexcar flew in perfect formations, their tactics rigid and predictable. "Helm, take us into the debris field," Wilson commanded. Jupiter's rings provided perfect cover for what he had in mind. "Engineering, power down everything except life support and thrusters. Make us look like space rocks." The Striker drifted silently among the ice and rock fragments, while the Vexcar ships moved toward Europa. Through the bridge windows, Wilson could see their strange designs, ships that looked like giant arrowheads, their surfaces covered in geometric patterns that glowed with green energy. Back on Europa, Emma worked frantically to decode the enemy communications. "Wait," she said suddenly, her eyes widening. "These patterns, they're not just talking. They're counting down." She grabbed her emergency comlink. "All colonists, get to the deep shelters now. They're about to attack." Her warning came just in time. The Vexcar ships fired their weapons, green beams slicing through Europa's thin atmosphere. But instead of hitting the colony directly, the beams cut into the ice around it. They were trying to sink the entire colony into Europa's frozen ocean. "Not on my watch," Wilson muttered. The Striker burst from its hiding place, engines roaring to full power. His ship might be small, but he had one advantage: the element of surprise. The Striker fired its main guns at the nearest Vexcar ship. The shots hit exactly where Wilson had aimed, the glowing patterns that covered the enemy vessel. The geometric designs shattered, and the massive ship's green lights flickered and died. Those patterns aren't just for show, Wilson realized. They're part of their power system. He quickly shared this information with Emma at the colony, who sent it to Earth Command. The Vexcar ships broke formation to chase the Striker, exactly as Wilson had hoped. Their perfect lines dissolved as they tried to catch his smaller, more agile vessel. This gave Emma and her team time to activate Europa's defense systems, simple kinetic weapons that the Concordiat had called primitive, but they worked just fine against the Vexcar's shields. "Keep firing," Emma ordered the defense teams. "Aim for those glowing patterns." The battle lasted 2 hours. When it ended, 3 Vexcar ships had been destroyed, and the rest retreated, their perfect formation broken. The Europa colony was damaged, but intact, its people safe in the deep shelters. Wilson docked his ship at the colony to help with repairs. The Striker was battered, with hull breaches in 2 sections, but his crew had proved that humanity could fight back. Emma met him at the airlock, datapad in hand. "Captain, I've analyzed their communications during the battle. They weren't expecting us to fight back at all." They called us abandoned prey. Wilson's face hardened at these words. Well, they're in for a surprise. We might be abandoned, but we're nobody's prey. As they worked to repair the colony's defenses, similar reports came in from across the solar system. The Vexcar were testing Earth's defenses everywhere, looking for weak spots. But at every turn, they found humans ready to fight. The message was clear. Humanity wouldn't go quietly. The Concordiat might have left them alone, but that just meant there was no one holding them back anymore. The real war was just beginning. Colonel John Parker stood on the red soil of Mars, watching his colonial marines dig in. The dust storms helped hide their new base from Vexcar scouts, but they made working outside difficult. Still, his people didn't complain. They knew what was at stake. Sir, a young Marine called out, "You need to see this message from Earth Command." Parker walked to the communications bunker, his boots leaving deep prints in the Martian dust. Inside, the screen showed a decoded Concordiat message that Earth's intelligence team had finally cracked. As he read it, his hands clenched into fists. "Those cowards," he muttered. The message revealed the truth. The Concordiat had abandoned Earth because they feared the Vexcar. They believed that any world that helped humanity would be destroyed next. But the message also contained something unexpected, detailed files about Vexcar technology. The Concordiat had left these behind, perhaps out of guilt. Dr. Amanda Cooper, Earth's leading scientist in alien technology, was already putting this information to good use. In her lab beneath the Rocky Mountains, she worked day and night with her team. "Look at this," she said to her assistant, pointing at a screen showing Vexcar shield designs. "They think their technology is perfect, unchangeable. But that's their weakness. They never adapt, never change." Cooper's team had been studying pieces of the Vexcar ships destroyed at Europa. Their technology was advanced, but it followed strict patterns. Every ship was exactly the same. Every weapon followed the same rules. "They're like a computer that can only run one program," Cooper explained to the military leaders over a video call. "Powerful, but inflexible. We can use that against them." On Mars, Parker put this knowledge to work. His Marines set traps that looked like easy targets. When Vexcar ships came to attack, they found their perfect formations broken by simple tricks. Mirrors that confused their sensors, radio signals that disrupted their communications. "They never learn," Parker told his troops during a briefing. "Hit them the same way twice, and they'll fall for it twice. They don't know how to change their tactics." The real breakthrough came when Cooper's team finished their new shield design. It wasn't as powerful as Vexcar shields, but it could change frequency and strength as needed. The first test came at the Mars base. 3 Vexcar ships attacked at dawn, their green weapons firing in their usual pattern. Parker watched from the command center as Cooper's shields held. The energy beams that should have destroyed the base simply bounced off. "Fire the railguns," Parker ordered. The human weapons might be simpler than Vexcar technology, but they worked. Solid metal slugs, accelerated to incredible speeds, smashed through the confused alien shields. Another Vexcar ship exploded in the thin Martian atmosphere. The others retreated, unable to understand why their perfect strategy had failed. The victory spread hope throughout the solar system. Humanity might have less advanced technology, but they had something the Vexcar didn't understand: the ability to adapt and change. Earth Command quickly shared Cooper's shield designs with all human settlements. The Vexcar's perfect tactics became their biggest weakness. They couldn't change their attack patterns, even when those patterns stopped working. "The Concordiat thought they were protecting us," Cooper said during a meeting with Earth's leaders. "But they were holding us back. We had to learn to protect ourselves." Parker received new orders from Earth Command. His Mars base would become the staging ground for humanity's first major counterattack. Ships arrived daily, bringing troops and supplies. The dust storms hid the buildup from enemy scouts. "They think we're weak because we were abandoned," Parker told his growing force. They think we'll be easy prey because we lost our allies. But they don't understand what humans do when backed into a corner. In orbit around Mars, the first ships equipped with Cooper's new shields prepared for battle. They weren't as large or powerful as Vexcar vessels, but they didn't need to be. They just needed to be smarter, more flexible, more human. The Concordiat had left humanity alone, thinking they were saving themselves. Instead, they had freed humanity to fight in their own way. The Vexcar were about to learn that humans were at their most dangerous when standing alone. The time for defense was over. Tomorrow, they would take the fight to the enemy. Steve Martinez wiped sweat from his forehead as he worked in his workshop on Titan, Saturn's largest moon. Around him lay pieces of salvaged Vexcar technology mixed with human equipment. Other engineers had called him crazy 6 months ago, but now they watched in amazement as he combined the two technologies in ways no one had thought possible. "It's like building with Legos," he explained to Lieutenant Kate Foster, who had come to see his work. "Their tech is advanced, but it's made of basic building blocks. We just need to rearrange these blocks our way." Kate nodded, but her mind was on something else. As a specialist in biological warfare, she had made an interesting discovery in her lab. "Steve, look at this," she said, pulling up images on her tablet. The pictures showed Vexcar ship parts covered in ordinary Earth bacteria. "The metals are corroding," Steve noticed, leaning closer. "But this isn't normal rust." "Exactly," Kate said excitedly. "Our bacteria eat through their hull materials like they're candy. The Vexcar never planned for this because they sterilize everything. They don't understand how to deal with living things." This discovery led to a new weapon. Steve designed small drones that could attach to Vexcar ships and spread Earth bacteria across their hulls. The bacteria wouldn't destroy the ships quickly, but they would weaken them over time. While they worked, more good news arrived from across the solar system. The underground resistance networks were growing stronger. On every moon and asteroid where humans lived, people found ways to fight back. A mining colony on Ceres used their drilling equipment to hide ships underground. When Vexcar patrol ships passed by, they found only empty buildings. They never thought to look below the surface. The ice miners of Europa built networks of tunnels under the moon's frozen surface. They moved supplies and weapons right under the enemy's nose. The Vexcar's sensors, designed to spot ships in space, couldn't see through the ice. Back in his workshop, Steve finished his newest invention. He called it the Mirror Box. It looked simple, just a metal cube covered in special panels. But when he turned it on, the panels copied any energy patterns they saw. "Watch this," he told Kate. He pointed a Vexcar weapon they had captured at the box. The box's panels lit up with the same green patterns found on Vexcar ships. Their sensors would see it as one of their own devices. "We can hide whole ships behind these," Steve explained. "The Vexcar will think they're looking at their own technology." Kate's bacteria and Steve's mirror boxes gave human ships two new advantages. The bacteria slowly weakened enemy ships, while the mirror boxes let human vessels get close without being spotted. The first test came when a small human fleet approached a Vexcar patrol near Saturn. The human ships carried mirror boxes and bacteria-spreading drones. The Vexcar ships didn't react as the human vessels got closer. They thought they were seeing their own technology. By the time they realized their mistake, it was too late. The human ships launched their drones. Within hours, the Vexcar ships' perfect hulls began to decay. Their beautiful geometric patterns started to fade as Earth bacteria ate through their systems. "It's not just about having better weapons," Steve told the other engineers who now wanted to learn from him. "It's about using what we have in ways they don't expect." Kate agreed. She had found that the Vexcar were so afraid of contamination that they would abandon any ship that showed signs of bacterial infection. They didn't even try to clean them. They just left them floating in space. "Their greatest strength is their weakness," she said. "They think they're perfect, so they don't know how to handle imperfection." Word of these successes spread through the resistance networks. Earth bacteria and mirror boxes were sent to every human settlement. The Vexcars still had bigger ships and stronger weapons, but they started to lose more fights. Humanity had found its edge. They didn't need the Concordiate's protection anymore. They had something better: human creativity and the will to survive. In his workshop, Steve started work on his next invention. "They think technology has to be perfect," he said to Kate as she prepared more bacterial cultures. "We know better. Sometimes the best solutions are the messy ones." The tide of war was turning, one clever idea at a time. General Laura Chen stood before the giant screen in Earth's Defense Command, watching hundreds of blue dots move into position. Each dot represented a human ship, now ready for humanity's biggest attack yet: Operation Thunderbolt. "All ships report ready, General," her aide said. "Major Rodriguez's forces on Mars are in position too." Chen nodded, her face serious. 6 months of planning had led to this moment. The Vexcar had grown weaker, confused by humanity's strange tactics. Now was the time to strike back hard. "Send the signal," she ordered. "Operation Thunderbolt begins now." Across the solar system, human ships jumped into action. They had studied the Vexcar's patrol routes carefully. The aliens never changed their schedules, making them easy to predict. On Mars, Major Peter Rodriguez led his part of the attack. His teams had spent months building fake bases in the desert, empty buildings that looked just like real human colonies. The Vexcar's next patrol would arrive in exactly 6 hours, just like they always did. "All units, check your mirror boxes," Rodriguez ordered through his radio. The devices Steve Martinez had invented were now standard equipment. Every human ship and base had them. When the Vexcar patrol arrived at Mars, they saw what looked like an easy target: an undefended human colony. They moved in to attack, their ships forming their usual perfect arrow shape. "Now," Rodriguez shouted. Hidden gun ports in the sand opened up. Rail guns fired, their metal shells coated with Kate Foster's special bacteria. The Vexcar ship's shields blocked some shots, but those that hit started eating through their hulls immediately. At the same time, human ships appeared from behind Mars moons, their mirror boxes making them look like Vexcar vessels until the last second. The aliens didn't know which ships were real enemies and which were their own. "They're breaking formation," Rodriguez reported to General Chen. "Just like we planned." Similar attacks happened all across the solar system. Near Jupiter, Earth ships attacked Vexcar supply lines. Around Saturn, hidden fighters struck their patrol bases. Everywhere, the aliens found their perfect plans falling apart. Dr. Cooper's new shields proved their worth in every battle. They could change and adapt, while Vexcar shields stayed the same. Human ships could take hits that would have destroyed them months ago. Multiple Vexcar ships retreating from the Jupiter sector, a voice announced in command. More reports followed, victories from Mars, Saturn, and the asteroid belt. But the biggest part of Operation Thunderbolt was still to come. While the Vexcar were distracted by attacks everywhere else, General Chen launched her main strike. 100 ships, hidden behind Mercury, charged toward the largest Vexcar base in the solar system. "All ships, full attack speed," Chen ordered. "They won't expect us to be this bold." She was right. The Vexcar had never faced a direct attack on one of their main bases. They didn't think humans would dare try. Their defenses were aimed outward, not at the planet behind them. Earth ships hit the base from all sides. Mirror boxes let them get close before the Vexcar realized they were under attack. Rail guns fired bacteria-laden shells. Special bombs designed by Steve Martinez disrupted their perfect geometric power systems. "Their shields are failing," Chen's tactical officer reported. "They can't adapt fast enough." The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, the Vexcar's largest base in the solar system was destroyed. 15 human ships were lost, but they had killed 30 alien vessels and forced the rest to retreat. On Mars, Rodriguez's forces captured their first Vexcar ship intact. The aliens abandoned it when bacteria started eating through the hull, leaving behind working examples of their technology. "Send everything to Dr. Cooper and Martinez," Chen ordered. "Let's see what else we can learn about their weaknesses." The day's victories changed everything. Human forces had pushed the Vexcar back in every sector of space. For the first time, Earth's colonies could breathe easier. The Concordia thought we needed their protection, Chen told her staff later that day. "But we've done better on our own. We found our own strength." She looked at the tactical display, now showing human ships controlling most of the solar system. The Vexcar's perfect formations were broken. Their unbeatable technology had failed against human creativity and determination. Operation Thunderbolt had worked better than anyone hoped. But Chen knew the war wasn't over yet. The Vexcar would be back, probably with reinforcements. But now, humanity knew they could win. They had proved it across the entire solar system in a single day. Commander Mark Sullivan couldn't believe his eyes. After 8 months of war with the Vexcar, a Concordia ship had appeared near Earth's orbit. Its white hull and smooth design were familiar sights from happier times. "They're requesting permission to dock at Luna Base," his communications officer said. "They say they want to talk." Sullivan looked at Admiral Susan Carter, who had come to Luna Base specifically for this moment. Her face showed no emotion, but her voice was cold when she spoke. "Let them come. It's time they saw what humanity has achieved without them." The Concordia ship docked smoothly. 3 alien diplomats stepped out, their tall, silvery forms exactly as Sullivan remembered. But something was different now. They seemed less impressive, less advanced than before. "We have come to restore our alliance," the lead diplomat announced. "The Vexcar threat has proven less overwhelming than we feared. We can offer protection once again." Admiral Carter let them finish speaking. Then she pressed a button on her desk. The base's windows cleared, showing the space around Earth. Concordia ships had once guarded this space. Now human vessels patrolled instead, their hulls marked with battle scars, but still strong. "Let me show you what we've done while you were gone," Carter said. She played videos from Operation Thunderbolt, showing human ships destroying Vexcar bases. The Concordia diplomats watched in silence as their screens showed Steve Martinez's mirror boxes fooling Vexcar sensors, and Kate Foster's bacteria eating through enemy ships. "Impossible," one diplomat whispered. "The Vexcar were unbeatable. That's why you ran." Sullivan finished for him. "Because you thought no one could fight them. Well, we didn't have that choice. We had to fight. And we learned something important. Nothing is unbeatable." Just then, alarms started blaring. A massive Vexcar fleet had appeared at the edge of the solar system, the largest anyone had ever seen. At its center was a huge ship, 3 times bigger than anything they'd encountered before. "Their command ship," Carter said, studying the readings. "They're finally showing themselves." The Concordia diplomats stepped forward. "You must accept our help now," they insisted. "This is their main fleet. You cannot hope to defeat it alone." Sullivan watched as Admiral Carter stood up from her desk. She was smiling, but not in a friendly way. "Watch us," she said. "Commander Sullivan, launch Operation Reckoning." Sullivan nodded and sent the signal. Suddenly, the space around Earth came alive. Hundreds of ships appeared from behind the Moon, Mars, and the asteroid belt. Each one carried Dr. Cooper's advanced shields and Martinez's latest weapons. "We knew they'd bring their command ship eventually," Carter told the shocked diplomats. "We've been preparing for months." The battle that followed was unlike anything the Concordia had ever seen. Human ships moved in unpredictable patterns, nothing like the Vexcar's perfect formations. Mirror boxes created false targets everywhere. Railguns fired special rounds that carried both bacteria and electrical disruptors. The Vexcar's massive fleet tried to maintain its formations, but human ships slipped between their lines, breaking up their patterns. Small, fast vessels carried Martinez's newest invention, energy pulse bombs that could shut down Vexcar power systems. Their command ship is falling back, Sullivan reported after an hour of fighting. Their formations are breaking. The Concordia diplomats watched in amazement as humanity's forces pushed back the supposedly unbeatable enemy. Earth's ships had taken losses, but they kept fighting, kept adapting, kept finding new ways to attack. "We don't need your protection anymore," Carter told the diplomats as they watched the battle. "We learned to protect ourselves, and we did it better than you ever could." When the fighting ended, the Vexcar command ship had retreated, its geometric patterns dark and damaged. Half their fleet was destroyed or disabled. Human ships had suffered too, but they had won the day. The Concordia diplomats left Luna Base without their alliance. They had come expecting to find a weak, grateful humanity ready to accept their help. Instead, they found a strong, independent species that had surpassed their expectations. As Sullivan watched their ship leave, he thought about how wrong they had been to abandon Earth. The Vexcar weren't unbeatable. They had just needed someone willing to fight them in new ways. The real battle for Earth's solar system would come soon, but now everyone knew humanity would face it on their own terms. The final battle began at dawn, Earth time. The Vexcar command ship had returned with what looked like their entire remaining fleet. Thousands of ships filled the space between Mars and Earth, their geometric patterns glowing with angry green light. Captain Brian Wilson stood on the bridge of his ship, the Striker, now decorated with battle scars from dozens of fights. This would be their last battle. Win or lose, everything would end today. "All ships report ready," Emma Roberts announced from her new position as Fleet Communications Chief. She had learned to decode every Vexcar signal pattern over the past months. "They're moving into attack formation." Admiral Carter's voice came through all command channels. "Remember your training. Remember what we learned. Humanity stands together today." The Vexcar struck first, their massive command ship leading the charge. But humanity was ready. Dr. Cooper's latest shields glowed blue around Earth's ships as they moved to meet the attack. Years of thinking they needed the Concordia's protection had taught humans to build strong defenses. Mirror box networks active, Steve Martinez reported from his control center on Titan. His invention had grown into a system that could now fool entire fleets. They won't know what's real and what isn't until it's too late. The space between planets turned into a storm of lights and explosions. Vexcar ships tried to maintain their perfect patterns, while human vessels darted between them, breaking up their formations. Kate Foster's enhanced bacteria spread from ship to ship, eating through hull after hull. Wilson led his battle group straight toward the enemy command ship. The Striker was small compared to the massive alien vessel, but he had a plan. Martinez had given him something special. A new device that could copy and reflect the Vexcar's own energy patterns back at them. "Get us close to their command ship," Wilson ordered his crew. "Everything depends on this." The battle raged for hours. Human ships took heavy losses, but they made the Vexcar pay for every hit. The aliens couldn't adapt to human tactics that changed minute by minute, battle by battle. Then Wilson saw his chance. The command ship's patterns flickered as Foster's bacteria began to affect its hull. There was a gap in its defenses, just for a moment. "All power to engines," he commanded. The Striker shot forward, diving straight toward the massive ship's weak point. "Launch the reflection device." Martinez's device flew from the Striker, attaching to the command ship's hull. It powered up, copying the geometric patterns that covered the alien vessel. But instead of maintaining those patterns, it sent them into chaos, reflecting them back randomly. The huge ship's perfect systems couldn't handle their own power being reflected back wrongly. Energy began to surge through its hull, overloading its systems. "All ships, clear the area," Wilson ordered. But as his crew prepared to retreat, he saw the command ship's main weapon powering up for one last shot at Earth. Wilson made his decision in a split second. "Everyone to escape pods," he ordered. "I'm staying with the ship." Over the radio, Emma's voice cracked. "Captain, you can't." Someone has to make sure that device stays in place until the command ship goes down, Wilson said calmly. Get clear. That's an order. The Striker's crew escaped in pods as Wilson turned his ship straight toward the command ship's main weapon. As the massive green beam fired, the Striker flew into it, Martinez's device still disrupting the larger vessel's systems. The explosion lit up the solar system like a new sun. When it faded, both the command ship and the Striker were gone. But the reflection device had done its work. The massive explosion had torn through the Vexcar fleet's perfect formation, destroying or disabling most of their ships. The enemy fleet is retreating, Emma announced, her voice thick with emotion. They're running. Around the solar system, cheers erupted from every human settlement. The Vexcar's unbeatable fleet had been beaten. Their perfect technology had failed against human determination and sacrifice. Dr. Cooper's shields became the new standard for planetary defense. Martinez's devices protected human ships and colonies. Foster's discoveries changed how humanity thought about biological defense. The Concordiat sent messages asking to restore diplomatic relations. Earth's answer was polite but firm. Humanity had learned to stand on its own. Admiral Carter ordered a memorial built on Luna Base. It listed the names of everyone who died defending humanity, with Captain Brian Wilson's name in the center. Under it were written the words, "When allies left, humanity's might brought salvation." The stars belonged to humanity now. They had earned their place among them, not through advanced technology or powerful allies, but through courage, creativity, and the will to fight for their home. They would never need anyone's protection again.